Hello friends and welcome to the Noclip podcast. It's episode 120 and no more just me rambling. We got a full crew here. Jeremy Jane, Frank Howley, we're all together. We haven't talked in like 2 weeks. Jeremy, how has your fortnight been?
It's been wonderful. The rain has been nonstop. The wind has been intense. A tree blew down and knocked down the power lines outside of my house, bursting into flames.
Wait, excuse me?
Into
flames?
So I was indisposed, shall we say. I was in the restroom, and a banging came upon the door. Such a clatter came upon the door. My landlord was outside yelling, "Call 911." And I had I had to yell back. I'm in the bathroom. You call.
With you like underpants around your legs, like reading the newspaper.
Yeah. I had my The New Yorker in my hands, and I was like, "Darling, I'm a little busy at the moment." He was yelling, "Call 911" because the power lines burst into flames.
That's what. How does that happen? Does it hit a transformer or something, or is it just? I have no idea about how electricity works.
A big log fell on the lines, and I mean, as you know, wood is not very conducive to electricity. But there was a lot of electricity, so there's a big log with a huge burn mark on it outside my house. It's pretty cool, actually.
Wow! Did the fire people turn up?
They did. There was a lot of them. They were there all day, and there was no power for like 2 days. But
oh no.
Yeah, but it's all worth it because I have the anecdote now of someone slamming on my door, yelling "Call 911" while I'm on the toilet. It was.
Did you get to finish your toilet time?
I mean, not in any sort of like peaceable way, but
that's the trauma. Next time, I bet every time you've sat down to pinch a loaf since, it's been just this PTSD.
I pre-dial 911 just in case on my phone.
Frank Haley, what's the most traumatic thing that's happened to you while taking a dump?
Dang, I'm trying to think. I feel like
I'm sending him S rank.
No. I wonder if my phone fell in the toilet briefly and I fished it out before too much water damage happened. This is back in the flip phone era. I forget. I was trying to think.
You flipped it. Yeah, I can see that happening. I feel like that's kind of an intrusive thought we all have when we're I think I told this story on the Sam Barlow interview, but one time I was so drunk that I took out my phone to read a text message, and I had my phone in one hand and a pint of cider in the other, and I just put the phone in the cider, just thinking it was my pocket. I was immediately regretted the decision, and then had to do you ever do the thing where you put your phone in like a hot plate, or wrap it up in a towel and put it in there's a special place in Irish houses called a hot press. It's basically just like a cupboard that's warm that you dry clothes in. You just put your phone in there for 2 days and then it's okay. Have you ever had that happen? I've saved so many pieces of electricity from water damage.
I've done the rice trick. Wait, okay. I need to know more about the hot press though. Is this artificially heated? Why is it hot?
It's hot because usually it's where the boiler for the house is, but they will install the boiler in such a way that there is one cupboard. It's called an airing cupboard in the UK. We call it the hot press because press is the word for a cupboard, what would you call it here? In the kitchen when you open up those wooden doors. What are those?
Like a cupboard.
Cupboard, yeah, I got a cupboard, yeah. Whereas cupboard in Ireland is like a fucking fancy thing you put your clothes in. I kind of feel like a cupboard, like Lion the Witch in the wardrobe type shit. So the hot press, yeah, it's just like it's usually beside the boiler, and it's basically a place where, because in Ireland we don't usually have dryers. It's probably changed now because I've not lived there in quite a while, 15 odd years, 16 or so. But we do a lot of drying clothes on a line in the garden, which is really stupid for a country where it rains as fucking often as it does in Ireland. So you also have to have the hot press, which is kind of clothes come in, they're dry, but they're not warm or properly aerated or anything. You just gotta get them in there, get them in a hot press.
Did your mom ever do a New York newsy accent as she threw you a warm T-shirt and go hot off the presses and throw you a?
It was a thing like that. And do you guys had radiators in your house?
Yeah.
Yeah, radiator. You probably did, right? Frank, did you have radiator? I mean, you're a SoCal kid, so yeah, it's not an you don't
Big
need
metal,
radiators.
big hot metal object.
Yeah,
it was the
exactly.
best.
Just pumps hot water. You have to bleed them every now and again because they get full of air and shit. Yeah, it's good. The most old timey thing I tell my daughter to really make it sound like I'm from the fucking bygone eras is like, well, I tell her about the coal man first of all, who was the guy who would come, like we had the milkman, right? We had milkman. I feel like milkmen aren't a thing anymore. But the coal man would bring coal, and we had a coal shed in the back of the house, and we had a fire in our living room, but it was a coal fire, and I would be bathed in front of the coal fire in a bucket when I was a baby.
That's awesome. That's the most Joycean thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's a little bit, isn't it? And then they'd send me up that chimney to clean it all around town. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I have no video games to talk about, but I did spend 2 weeks on a road trip, and I'm excited to talk to Jeremy and Frank, who I have not introduced yet, about all the games they've been playing, about PAX. Frank, did you have a good PAX? Good time at PAX?
Yeah, it was fun. I'm still like, there's so much to process.
Tired.
It was like 3 days, and I was occupied the entire time, bouncing either from game to game to friends to food to sleeping to comic books and video games. I did bring my Steam Deck. And enjoy the hotel. But no,
terrific.
PAX was awesome. It's a different vibe than PAX West. PAX East is mostly like indie games, one-on-one time with devs, like a lot of cosplay community. And again, like just I get to see all my East Coast friends, which is really cool. So yeah, it was a good time. I got to embed with the Dwarf Fortress folks. I got to meet them for the first time. The Adams are so sweet. They're so gentle. They're so like articulate. It's I don't know.
Yeah, it's intimidating, isn't it? Talking to Tarn. Tarn is like you're in the presence of someone who I feel like is like cognitively a couple of miles ahead of me, a couple of minutes ahead of me in every conversation.
He's like a great professor. It's so funny. There's a great line in the footage I have where it's like, they're doing autographs at the Dwarf Fortress party. So for everyone with a postcard, I'm like, well, I want to get a postcard. And Tarn says, yeah, go get a postcard. What are you doing with that camera? You go get a postcard. I don't know what you're doing. Like, it's so funny. Like, it reminds me of like a professor where it's like, I don't know. It's hyper genius. But yeah, PAX.
Love it.
PAX rules.
We'll talk about PAX in a little bit. I want to make sure we do a shout out to all our Battle Pass holders, especially some of the new ones. Got some new names in here. James Brown, Jason Drury, Ryan Mack, Tucker Morgan, David McGarry. Can't fuck this up. They'll disappear. David McCarry, Sven Huster, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fegan, Eric Schneider.
Cameron Ladd.
I know. See, he's in a different spot now. It's hard. You got to be on your toes. George Dakotas, Jacob Godserv, and Toyo Tiliev, thank you all so much. If you'd like to support this 100% ad-free podcast, fund our docs and get access to a bunch of bonuses, including videos, bonus podcast episodes, Discord access, and loads more. You can do it over at patreon.com/noclip. Sorry, Frank. Let's start with PAX. Yes, as you said, you went there for a couple of days. You were doing some Noclip skullduggery. You did some Dwarf Fortress additional filming because we kind of realized, wait a second, they're there. You're there. Let's do a thing. And presumably you also played some games while you were there as well. What were your highlights from PAX?
Yeah, the thing I was most excited for was Cult of the Lamb was there, so all the devs from Australia were there, and it was so fun to talk to them. I think it was they were also at GDC. There's a handful of devs who did like GDC the first half of the week and then PAX East the second half of the week.
It is insane that even after COVID they have not solved this. That they still run GDC and PAX at the same time. It's like, especially considering perhaps if you're trying to like downplay or trying to like minimize the amount of like infection that's going to be happening, especially you don't want people going on airplanes between convention centers. That's like the boss mode version of living in COVID.
But you can pin it. You can pin it on the other convention though. You know what I mean? They're close enough that they're like,
that's true.
It wasn't going around PAX. I hear it was going around GDC, but.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to get sick of one of them, it's going to be PAX.
That's true.
Like, the PAX Pox existed long before COVID did. Or maybe that's where it started. Maybe it wasn't a fucking pangolin. Maybe it was some, It was
Artist Alley at PAX.
The last convention in the nation was, like, PAX East 2020. I was there, like, March, 10th, and then a week later,
Holy shit.
Animal Crossing came out and the world shut down. The other thing, I got to play Animal Well from Big Mode, and it was
cool.
to actually see it. I got to talk to like the developer. I also got to talk to Dunkey and Leah, who are extremely sweet, and I also run into them.
Did you say her from Noclip?
I did. And like, oh hey, Leah is so sweet. I also got an interview with them. I want to put together like a little interview vlog.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Behemoth were there with Alien Hominid Invasion, which is a new 4-player Alien Hominid.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like, I've been following the Behemoth, like, again, from the OG days of, like, Newgrounds, and so it's so surreal to see, like, Dan Paladin's art style have new stuff in 2023, and it's like, this is wild. It looks gorgeous.
We talked about this, I think, on a private meeting, podcast, off air. We really do have to do a Newgrounds documentary.
Yes.
Like, no one else is going to do it. Like, we need to talk to a lot of those guys. Is it Tom Fulp is the other dude?
I think Tom Fulp was responsible in founding Behemoth, but I don't think Tom Fulp is currently involved in this project, because I know Tom Fulp is also developing, I think, a game called Nightmare Cops that they've been working on for a long time.
It's a great name.
But Dan Paladin, I know Behemoth, the main dude's name is, I believe, John. Everyone there at Behemoth is super nice, but yeah, it has its DNA. It's there's so much that owes it to Newgrounds and that early Flash look.
Yeah.
Another game that kind of surprised me. There's a game called Road 96, which I'd never heard about or played.
I loved it. Yeah, I played it. It came out I feel like a year and a half ago, maybe.
Yeah, and there was a prequel out called Road 96 Mile Zero, which comes out next week, I believe.
Oh,
and
cool.
What caught my eye is there's like skateboarding rhythm sections. And I was like, what is this game? And it almost played like Sayonara Wild Hearts, and it's, I guess, like a narrative adventure game, but in between all the storytelling, there's actual really cool like combat rhythm sequences that looked awesome.
Yeah, do you remember me talking about this, Jeremy?
No, I don't
feel
think
like
I do.
I did on the podcast. I feel like I did, or maybe I forget. Yeah, this came out August 2021 on Windows and Switch, and then it came out on PS5 and Xbox in April of last year. And I really enjoyed it. It is like Frank said, it's a role playing. Oh, it's hard to explain. Do you remember Overlander, the Finji game? Overland, sorry.
Yeah,
the
it was
Finji
like
game.
the tactics roguelike kind of game.
Yeah, but do you remember? So the whole part of that was trying to get east to west, I think, in America, and you're basically stopping at various places. Road 96 is a game where you were trying to escape it's almost like it's a fictional place, but it kind of feels like, I would say, high desert America, but like Eastern European or something. And you are playing a character who's trying to get out, and on the way there are like you choose which direction to go in, or like whether to go with somebody or not, or XYZ, and there's like loads of permutations. Like, I think you can complete the game in I can't remember, but I think it was like low enough, like 4, 5, 6 hours kind of thing. But you could replay it loads of different ways, because you could go in different directions. You could stop at different things. You could make different moral choices. Like, there's bank robberies you can get involved in. You can like steal gas, all this sort of stuff. But it's like first person, and you are like walking around these areas and talking to people and like doing the game stuff. So it's very, very unique. I think it's French. It kind of has a vibe of being like some Central European madness in here. But it's really cool. So that's is that a standalone thing they're doing?
I think so. And that impressed me. Oh yeah, they used Offspring music in it, so I was like, yeah, this game's cool. This is awesome. It had,
Crazy Taxi style.
They saw Frank coming.
Yeah. It was like skateboarding, Offspring, very cute comic book like art style. I was like, yeah, this is super rad. One thing that was announced at the show was Toxic Crusaders, which is a beat 'em up inspired from the universe of Tromaville and the Toxic Avenger, which is an incredible trash series I love from the 80s, and there was a cartoon. So I freaked out. And they had Toxic Avenger there. I did find. This is a Polish game. There is if you're a Hamtaro fan, there's a game called Hamster Playground, which is free on Steam.
Terrific.
You customize.
It's free.
It's free to play. You customize your team of hamsters. It's very adorable. It's like The Sims with hamsters. I straight up asked them, like, is there Hamtaro influence? And they said they tried to get the Hamtaro license, but were unable to. So it's the closest thing there.
Oh my God, look at this thing.
Yeah. This
is insane. This came out August. This is like, games are impossible to cover these days.
Yeah.
Like, this game came out August of last year. This is absolutely insane. These hamsters are incredibly well animated. What the fuck? This is like
Hamster playground. Hey, I got
hamster playground.
I got
Let's go
Dude.
play this now.
yeah.
Yeah, you can get them to race and shit.
You can
It's early access.
There's skateboarding. I feel like any game with skateboarding catches my eye. So there you can skateboard the hamsters. I got an interview. It'll be
He's a one kink guy.
I
Love it.
Another game that I totally missed, but like after the con closed and I was walking out, I saw a game that was like Froggy's Pro Skater. So I totally missed like I spent 3 days at the con, I completely missed, but there's like a frog pro skating game I completely flubbed.
Yeah, what's that game called? I've seen that everywhere. That's like
Yeah.
that's a big Twitter thing. That frog skateboarding game. What is it?
Yeah, dang.
How have I missed this?
It's like Skatebird came out
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
a while ago. It's just like, oh, what's it called? It's got a funny name, I think.
Ollie
Is
Frog?
it? Ollie Frog. Is that? It's not that
Ollie
one.
Frog
Oh.
Toad Skater. That's
that it?
Yeah.
That's it? Oh,
yeah.
it is. Okay,
I completely
sorry.
missed it, but I saw the thing. And I was darn it. Well, but not, but
Ollie Frog Toad Skater.
yeah.
Oh, this is cute. This has kind of a Sanrio vibe to it as well.
Yeah. There is
Oh
a
my
demo, so
God.
people can try it, but I just added to my wish list so I don't miss it. I feel so bad. That's the thing with PAX is like, it's there's so many, every booth is an indie game, and every booth has developers there like eager to try your game. So it's like, it is also very overwhelming. There's so many games to play. There's so many people, but I go in and just kind of like surf the aisles and see what catches my eyes, and I'll do multiple rounds. The other thing that was huge at convention was I covered this game at PAX West, but that upcoming JRPG styled wrestling game WrestleQuest. At this year, they had a full-on wrestling ring at PAX East, so every day there was indie
Oh, wow.
wrestling happening. And this was like perfect because I've been super into like GCW and all this like indie wrestling stuff that like I just hung out there and shot wrestlers and photo, and it was like, yes, this is so perfect. And it was really fun. Like, I don't know, it was excellent marketing, excellent showmanship. It was funny to see like East Coast indie wrestlers. So that was a good time.
That's neat.
And yeah, I already mentioned Cult of Lamb. There's a handful of more games. Oh yeah, New Blood was there. Got to say hello to Dave Oshry.
Dave was there.
Yeah, he
Nice
traveled
one.
from New Zealand to
Yeah,
attend the show.
17-hour flight, I believe. I saw him arriving
Oh
home
my
yesterday.
god! So we got to say what's up to Dave, and it's cool too. I feel like there's any devs that we've seen or covered, I'll go up and say hello. But yeah, I love the New Blood team. I've always been a huge fan of, so it's always cool to pop by their booth.
People keep asking us to do a documentary on New
Yes,
Blood.
yeah.
It's like we've never done one. I've never done one on publishers. I feel like it's been something we've stayed away from. People keep fucking asking. to
Yeah,
go to
I
certain
think,
states.
and I
It's
kind of
like,
asked Dave in an interview about like just like the ethos, where it's just like, yeah, they were kind of ahead of the curve with all the retro FPS boom, and like every title and artist they work with is just like, I don't know, I love their DNA, I love their vibe. Yeah, we covered Gloomwood and such, and it's just like they know what they're doing. They have an awesome audience and support, and yeah, I feel like there's a strong mission statement behind it too.
Speaking of retro FPS, did you see the news that Night Dive was bought by Atari?
Yeah.
That was wild. I had lunch with Stephen Kick on the way back from Dwarf Fortress, and of course, he said nothing about this for obvious reasons, I guess. But
Wow.
yeah, I had no idea that was going down. So I think that means Atari now owns System Shock. I'm assuming so, and also probably a lot of. I mean, he's managed to get a lot of IPs over the years, like to some stuff that's more esoteric than others for sure. But that's wild, especially because I don't know what like the joke going around was always that Atari, whoever owns Atari now, is completely disconnected from, like, they were selling those hats. Do you remember they were trying to do the
Yeah.
Atari Hotel at one stage? I think it was like a venture capital. I forget exactly. But yeah, I've had like whispers of game news for the past 2 weeks because I spent much of the past while away from internet and stuff, either on purpose or because I was in Death Valley or whatever, or snowed in at the Grand Canyon, which was fucking weird. We went to the Have you guys been to the Grand Canyon before?
I've still never
No.
gone.
Yeah, I've been so close to it, but I've never actually gone.
Right. It's a bit. I don't know. It felt a bit like, oh yeah, this is why people laugh about like their parents dragging them to the Grand Canyon and being like, there it is, and then leaving again, because like it takes a while to get there because it's a bit out of the way, especially when you have a 4.5-year-old. And then we got there and I was like, yeah, it's pretty, like I've seen views like that. I feel like doing like off-roading and stuff, and all I felt was it's really impressive and big, and it's crazy how large it is, but I wish I was down there looking
Yeah,
up.
for sure.
That looks better. You know what I mean? Like I've been on mesas and been on, mountains and stuff like that looking down, and it kind of felt like, oh, I wish I was like in the shit. But then we went to bed that night and we had like a foot of snow in the village, so we had to. So my daughter loved that shit. She was just out jump. We had no snow gear, so I had to wrap her sandals in socks that I had, and we went outside and played in it. But it took ages to get out of town then because we were just like going through all the snow.
That's wild. That's actually why I couldn't go to the Grand Canyon, is because it was
Really?
snowed in when I was there. Yeah, I did go to Horseshoe Bend, which is nearby. I believe it's Horseshoe Bend, which is funny because it's kind of like similar. It's like a small scale version of the Grand Canyon, but it's 5 minutes from the local Walmart. So you kind of go and you're like, wow, it's so gorgeous, and then you look over to the side and there's just little like town with a Walmart over there. Yeah.
I went to I'll tell you about my weird road trip in a second. Sorry, Frank. PAX. What was there any other little bits and bobs you had?
Yeah, like I've had a few more interesting games. There's Xenotilt Hostile Pinball Action, which is a sequel. I'd never played the first one,
Jesus
but yeah,
Christ.
Xenotilt.
What a name.
Extreme like 90s Sega Genesis sound blast processor, funky music, insane like skeleton anime art style. Like it's so rad. It looks like the perfect Steam Deck game. The dev was also a big Noclip fan, but yeah, Xenotilt looked really cool.
I'll look it up. Xenotilt.
Yeah, Xenotilt looks sick. So the first one's
Good
available
name.
now, but oh my god, Xenotilt looked really cool.
Hostile Pinball Action. There it is. Wishlisted on Steam.
Yeah.
Xenotilt.com has all you need to know about this. Jesus, that logo is intense.
Yeah, it's so there's a
It's got
giant
an
like
eyeball in the O.
yeah,
Very Neversoft.
Yep.
Look, fucking now it's just all you need to get Frank to look at your booth is to have something that's like Tony Hawk's adjacent. Even the Neversoft eyeball will get you there.
yeah. And then I was pulling up. There it is. Yeah. So PAX East was fun. I'm trying to think what else. Also, my headquarters is always the Mega 64 booth, just getting to like reset,
Yeah.
shadow them. They had a 20th anniversary panel, which was really cool and fun. I gotta have the best meal I had at PAX is I didn't want to like splurge on like, fancy seafood because like lobster roll is so expensive. I'm like, all right, that's not worth it. But I had chowder fries, which was so good. So French fries.
What are those?
Not too far from like poutine, but like French fries just covered in clam chowder.
That's pretty good.
And with bacon. It felt like eating a baked potato, but I wolfed it down. It was so good. Chowder fries. So that's the high. Skip lobster roll. Go chowder.
Go straight to chowder fries. It's like the poor man's lobster.
Yes.
It's like the proletariat's lobster. Is that?
Yeah. I feel like I'm always like on a budget when I look for food. CVS, got to get some snacks. But yeah, I don't know. PAX was fun. I'm also
Wait, they sell them at CVS.
not lobster rolls, but
Gotta
like,
get the CVS lobster roll.
yeah, CVS.
Yeah.
Oh my god, if they had that.
That gas station lobster roll.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, that was PAX East. Like I just love going to cons. I feel like it's the most hyper social thing I do because it's like I leave my room where I spend all my time playing video games to go in a much bigger room to spend time play video games. And but there's people there and cosplayers. I did see a vintage Hamtaro plush backpack that goes.
Man.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
it was giant. It was amazing. I freaked out. So
I have like 15 tabs open now from you talking about that. From Xenotilt Hostile Pinball Action, which, by the way, is developed by the developer's name is Wizen War, all caps, and the publisher is Flarb LLC, which is my favorite LLC. Presumably, it's his. Demon's Tilt is the previous game. It is 1999. It came out in 2019. So you can pick that one up. And then, yes, Xenotilt Hostile Pinball Action is number 2. Amazing. Thank you. I'm excited to see some of that footage. That's rad. Glad you had a good show. Glad you came back. You not sick? You okay?
Yes, I'm good.
Nice
I've been screaming and chatting for like 5 days straight. I'm going to another wrestling show Thursday night, so my voice might be completely gone by the end of the week. But I'm reserving myself. I don't know. I feel good. I'm having fun.
We have to play this hamster playground
Yes.
game. That's all I'm
Yes.
saying. This looks
100%.
ridiculous. So on my road trip, the road trip was kind of started because my wife wanted to go to that Taylor Swift concert, but the tickets were insane. So I was like, why don't you find a town that you've never been to before where we can maybe get them a little bit cheaper, and we'll do like a little family road trip vacation kind of thing out of it. So she got a ticket to not the opening night, but the second night in Phoenix. She got it at cost, which is pretty crazy because the thing ended up getting sold out. And so I drove to Phoenix, and then she went to the gig, and then we went on like a kind of 2-week little doodle-doodle-doo all around the high desert, I guess, the Colorado Plateau. So the first stop, I was thinking about you a lot, Jeremy, because we were in beautiful Sedona, where we filmed so much of our Half-Life documentary. We ate at the same place.
Nice, hell yeah.
Do you remember we ate?
I remember our waiter being charming.
I literally told my wife about this charismatic waiter that we had. I believe that was also the night that all those right-wing people
Yes.
were posting my old Dave Chappelle quotes at trying to make me out to be a racist.
Yeah.
And we were like, ooh. I was like, I remember being quite panicked, and you were just telling me to don't worry about it and get drunk or something.
That was good advice. I sound like a wise guy in this story.
Yeah. So we did Sedona, and then it was nice. It wasn't nearly as it was like pretty cloudy. It wasn't nearly as nice as when we were there. And also we didn't have a, what did we rent? We rented the Mustang.
Oh
right?
yeah, we had the black Mustang.
Yeah, we rented
That was
a
like
soft
why
top
you ended up
Mustang.
getting a Mustang later. It's because
was.
we had the Mustang down in Sedona.
Because I rented it there. We're like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember we got caught in the rain one time. I couldn't figure out how to put the soft top back up, and you with the camera in your hand. So many good memories there. And then I went up to Flagstaff, which I'd never been to before, because I know that road is closed a lot of the year because of all the snow. So there was loads of snow. It was really strange. We went to Grand Canyon because we thought we'd have to go to Grand Canyon to see it, and we did, and then the snow happened and all that sort of stuff. But when we got to the Grand Canyon, I realized I couldn't find my AirPods. And I'm like, I hate losing things. I like never lose things. I double check, triple check stuff. I have big like financial anxiety things about losing shit, and AirPods aren't cheap either. So when I couldn't find my AirPods, I was like, fuck, I left them at the hotel. I bet I left them in the hotel in Sedona. And we called them up, and we're like, they had like a, lost and found type thing. And I was like, oh shit, I should, my wife did it, put all the details in. I'm like, I'm never seeing these things again. They're AirPod Pros as well. So I'm like, oh my God, these are like, this is $200 headphones. I'm like, not gonna buy myself a pair of headphones for a year to castigate myself for this. It'll be my hairsuit so I don't lose things again. And then I was running across the road to find an ATM in this Grand Canyon town, and my phone did that thing where it was like, you're away from your laptop, because I have that like find thing, I guess, on my MacBook. And I was like, oh, let me check if the AirPods are on that. I never have ever used that. And I did, and they were in someone's fucking house, like outside of Sedona. And I'm like, oh no. So I screenshot the address, and I go back to my wife, and I'm like, okay, I think someone from housekeeping has my AirPods. I want them back, but I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I'm like look, people shouldn't rob shit, or shouldn't, like, fair enough. But also I know the people working Sedona housekeeping are probably not getting that much money. So I'm like, I don't want to, like, what should I do? I'm like, I can't, I kind of feel like, should I not act on this and just like take the L? Like, this is on me. Like, this is my fault, blah, 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 blah. Or should we nudge it? Or like, and I was like, let's give them a day. Don't do anything for now. We'll wait until tomorrow afternoon. If they're still there in the same spot, they're still sending the signal. I did a little thing on the app where you can do it. If somebody connects to the AirPods themselves, it'll tell their phone my email address and say, please, these are missing. Send them back.
That's like the funniest, most passive aggressive thing. Is like they put in their stolen iPad or their headphones, and it's like, hey, by the way, like these aren't yours. Just let you know.
And I think I did it so that you couldn't use them on any other, like, you couldn't use them.
Cool.
Like, it wouldn't let you use them on any, so even if they wanted to sell them, they couldn't.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll do that. So anyway, next afternoon happens. They haven't budged. I'm like, all right, let's do it. But let's really make it out that, like, we don't, like, just give them an out, like, because we have to email, like, the manager or whatever, you know what I mean? So, like, my wife sends an email, and it's like, we know they're in this town, so we know. We said generally where it was. We didn't say the actual address. I had the fucking address. I was thinking I'm gonna send these people pizza or something. You know what I mean? Just freak them out a little bit. But I had this thing in my head where I was like, or I could send like a UPS person or a FedEx person to pick them up without them knowing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here for the package. I'm here for the AirPods or something. But then I was like, I'll do that, and someone will get shot or something. It'll be on my. So we sent them. An email, and it was just like, look, they're in this part of we don't want anyone to get, it doesn't matter, just like all we want is to get these things back, because they obviously cost a lot of money. Now they're stolen property, which kind of escalates it, right? So So yeah, they were like, well, so within, like, I could see them moving. Like, it was like back to the hotel. It was so fucked up. It felt like very invasive, like I'd air tagged someone's car or something. So I guess they keep sending signal as long as they're like close to an Apple product or something like that. 'Cause the thing doesn't have like a friggin' GPS in it. It's a pair of headphones. Yeah, and they arrived, I guess, like 20 minutes ago back at our house here in Nevada. They got FedEx. We had to pay for the FedEx, which I was a little bit like, you should pay for the FedEx, motherfuckers. Massive hotel chain. Yeah, so I felt a bit dirty about that. I feel like I'm. It sounds, from the demeanor of everyone involved, it sounds like they were like, "Oh, okay, we'll send these back." Like, I don't know. I feel like if you work in housekeeping and you listen to this, let us know if there's like, I imagine there's a sort of a, unwritten law that, like, if you found it, you got it. Like, just don't, if stuff doesn't turn up in lost and found, especially in like Sedona. Because people are just like on road trips. They're just going through town. You'll never see them again. It's not like it's, somewhere where there's an expo or something, where people are.
Yeah, if you're like a service worker at a town that's only frequented by tourists, I feel like that's kind of that's the loose change that jangles loose from all the people as they pass through, You get their lost possessions.
Trickle down economics.
Yeah, that's what Reagan was talking about all those years ago.
Yeah, so I feel happy to have them back. I feel relieved, I'll say, more than anything else, and hopefully nobody got in trouble, I don't think. So we went to Steligman, I think the name of the town is, which is the town that the Cars movie is based on. It was like an old Route 66 town that then they built a highway off, so nobody went there anymore. And it's rad. It's full of like chintzy little weird shops and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Went to Vegas then for a few days, and then we had planned to go up to Zion in southern Utah and then drive over to the east, not all the way over to Moab, but like Bryce Canyon and then up to Salt Lake City. But this huge snowstorm came down. And we were like, and we had no winter clothes. Like, we'd already, like, I'd used up pairs of socks so my daughter could go play in the snow for an hour. So we kind of pulled the audible and went to Death Valley instead, where my wife had never been. So we stayed there in, like, there's only like 2 hotels in Death Valley anyway. So we stayed in one of those. And then we were going to go up to, I guess, Bishop, like on the eastern Sierras, go Bishop and then up past Mono Lake and home via Tahoe. But there was an avalanche there, which apparently has wiped out, I think it's 395. Is it that north of Bishop going up to, like, where Bodie is, like Ghost Town?
Yeah.
All that area? So, like, apparently they're like, that's all been wiped out. And then there was another storm coming through. I think the one that hit here yesterday was going to go over to the Sierras. So they weren't even doing work on it because they were like, look, there's more snow coming. So we ended up going to fucking Los Angeles. We had like all of these, like, it was supposed to be this desert road trip, and then we ended up like not going to Utah and then not even going to like Tahoe and home. It was like, but we did all the like the math and the timing, because it's like my daughter in a car for like longer than 5 hours. It's just not fair on her. So my wife was like, how about we go to Universal Studios? You've not seen that in Nintendo Land. So we went to Super Nintendo World. Is that what it's called? Yes, Super Nintendo World, which is the Nintendo area of Universal. Frank, I feel like you would have done this. Have you been there? Are you a Universal guy?
Not yet. I hate waiting in line.
Okay, well, let me tell you the place you don't want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Super Nintendo World is a section of Universal Studios in Los Angeles. This is the one that has the little Harry Potter world, not like the one in Florida. It's got the Jurassic Park ride, my absolute favorite. Brought my daughter on the Transformers ride, and she totally shit herself. Covered her eyes, covered her ears.
Aww.
Did not like. She liked Optimus Prime. She said, he's a good guy, right? And I was like, yeah, he's a good guy. And then he like threw us through the car we were in, so she wasn't convinced he was a good guy. We went into Super Nintendo World, which they have like, you can buy like, early passes and all this sort of stuff. We didn't have any of that. So maybe there's a way of throwing money at this problem. But we went in to Super Mario World, and it was absolutely rammed. And we did nothing. Like, we walked around. It's not huge. It's kind of like one large square, I'd say. And then there are a bunch of rides off it that are probably really fun. Like the Mario Kart one that you have to like I think wait for 3 hours, or there's like a digital queue or something, so you just get your slot. And a couple of other things. The aesthetics of it is super cool. It's like exactly, Mario-ish, very Super Mario Odyssey looking, or Super Mario. What was the new one called? I always forget those fucking.
Mario Odyssey.
Odyssey was the
no, the Odyssey is the one in space. What isn't it? Oh no, it is
Galaxy.
Odyssey. Is it Galaxy?
Odyssey
right, okay,
is the one that has New Donk City.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, then it doesn't look like New Donk City, but it looks like Odyssey, exactly that look. So the only thing we could really do is go to the store that was there, but it was so busy. It was like super busy, like shoulder to shoulder the whole way. So we spent like maybe less than 20 minutes in there entirely. The thing that I kind of got from it was just how completely superficial the lore of Mario is.
Oh yeah.
Like it is 100% just aesthetic, and there's nothing under the surface. Because I was even in the store looking for like Waluigis and Warios and shit. You know what I mean? Like, give me some of that. Give me some of that texture. Give me some of that like weird Nintendo. I want to see some of that here. And there was none. And even then, I was talking to my wife about it, and she was like, "What did she compare it to?" It was kind of like, even if you go to the Minions area in Universal, there's a bit of personality there. There's like, they do all they're all about references. So, there's that, but there's the kids, there's Gru, there's like the Minions have like this sort of weird lore to them. Like, where are they from? Why are they kind of vaguely Eastern European? Like, what's going on with the Minions? And Mario is just like, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
There's nothing beneath the surface of Mario.
The Mario lore is like, it's like a floating signifier. I feel like it's this Nintendo thing where they're so clamped down about brand control that by having because the more lore you give to Mario, the more pinned down you are to those details. But if he's just like this hollow candy shell and inside is nothing, then it can be all things to all people. It's like,
right.
There's an old Mario game called Mario Game Gallery, and it's one of those games that has like, you go to the menu and it's Mario and you pick like Yahtzee or poker or whatever, and it has Charles Martinet doing voices for it, but it's doing a bunch of lines that Mario would never do now. So he's like, "Oh, you're so good, you're making me confused," and it's fucking awesome because it's him saying like a bunch of shit about, like, he's like, "Oh, you got a straight flush," but in the Mario voice. And
amazing.
I was thinking you'd never get away with that now, because like when we used to work at GameSpot, we would do appointments with Nintendo, and they're so clamped down about control for everything. It's like, I remember like Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, I did a GameSpot appointment for it, and they yelled at me because I was off the angle, like the axis to film the off screen of the television, which always looks kind of like shit anyway.
Wow.
They're like, yeah, you need to get it like totally straight on, and so they're very, very brand controlled. So I feel like that's why Nintendo lore now is very, Mario doesn't say anything except his predetermined lines.
Yeah, it's so strange because even if you compare it to like Zelda, at least, and Zelda's also got a little bit of like a kind of a cipher problem, every man kind of problem of like, there's not really much there either with a lot of those Zelda characters. The worlds are interesting, I guess, but like even the worlds of Mario are so like in a way that like I'm totally okay with the fact that they're ill-defined and sort of amorphous, because that's, the games are meant to just be like, you're jumping on weird shit. It's like that whole thing we talk about with like James Pond and that whole era of 90s platform where it's like nobody cared about what, just give me different colors on the screen. Like that's give me different things to jump on, give me different plants and Goombas, and who fucking cares what any of this sort of stuff is. And but it's the fact that they've had to like codify this as like a world for the movie and for this theme park that just makes it like, it really exposes how there's absolutely nothing here. Even if you would like Sonic, I feel like there'd be a bit more, or like maybe they could do Super Mario World and like lean into some of that more random stuff and have like some of the weird characters that you get in like Mario Party games or something, but like that's clearly not the audience. This is an audience for people who remembered playing that game at their cousin's house when they were 8. It's all like Mario Kart 92 t-shirts and like Mario and Luigi shirts and Player 1 and Player 2 shirts, and it's all very like by the number. It's like my first video game kind of stuff.
The less generic the more specific you get with it, the more chance you have to puncture those people's like fragile nostalgia too. Like
right.
Like Player 1, they're like, I remember Player 1 as a concept, but if it got into like Mario's, like if it was like, this is like the pipe house from Super Mario RPG, people would be like, what are you talking about? Mario doesn't have a house.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like Thousands Year Door. Like there is actually things here too, right? There are elements of the Mario lore. Let's get some Mario golf and tennis in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there are. You're right. There. I think Mario Kart is probably the one thing that is like feels like there's a bit more to it. But even that, it's anyway. So anyway, that's my review of Super Nintendo World is don't go during spring break. And maybe pay to go in early. I guess you can get. I think the other reason was I think it's like booked out months in advance or something like that, for those early passes. I don't think they're crazy expensive. I think it might just be an extra like $20 a head maybe. So it just depends how much you value your time, I guess. But yeah, that was the end of it. It was a bit of I've said it on Twitter. It was a bit of a sort of people whiplash going from Death Valley to Super Nintendo World, just in terms of the amount of fucking people around me. But I have apparently come out of a 2-week vacation, having spent much of it in Vegas and Universal without COVID, so I will take the W. Speaking of W's, give me a second.
He's cooking up a segue.
That's an L. Do you want to talk about Parasite Eve or Diablo?
Well, the thing that I'm going to mention is sort of taking both of them into account. So
okay,
is one sort
amalgam.
Of topic. It's an amalgam of a topic.
Much like a W is an amalgam of two V's.
Yes, exactly. What a wonderful segue.
Thank you.
So last night I got the inkling to play Parasite Eve for some reason. I've never played it. I don't have any nostalgia for it. It's just one of those games that I've wanted to play for a long time. And it turns out that today is the 25th anniversary of the release of Parasite Eve.
Whoa. Da, da, da.
What does it mean?
That's creepy.
That's
creepy.
Mean? Yeah. My mitochondria were communicating to me. That's a reference from the game. So Parasite Eve is really cool. It's a Squaresoft RPG from 1998. I would describe it as sort of a survival horror game with the presentation of Final Fantasy VIII. It is more an RPG than a survival horror game, but it has very sort of like properly human proportioned characters, more sort of like verite, like realist texture painting. It's not like stylized like Final Fantasy IX or 7. It's got that sort of grounded Final Fantasy VIII look to it. But it is I would describe it as a like a JRPG X-Files game is how I would describe it. It is a New York 90s cop story with like a supernatural overtone about an actress who appears on stage in the opening and turns everyone in the audience into like weird bio goo and then fire. And
first into biogoo and then fire.
Yeah, there's sort of like a weird, like people start kind of like liquidating a little bit, and then they all burst into flames. There's more liquidation later on. This is a horror game. It is. There are people who get liquidated, which is kind of cool. But the thing I really wanted to talk about with this was so as people probably know, the Diablo 4 beta happened recently, the open beta, but also the KFC Double Down. If you pre-order the game or buy a KFC Double Down sandwich, you got access to the Diablo 4 beta.
You're kidding.
No, totally serious. So if you pre-order the game or got a chicken sandwich, you could play the closed beta.
Wow. Okay.
So
that's cool. I wish I gotten the chicken sandwich at KFC for Diablo. Feels like a game that doesn't work for some reason. For some reason, I feel like that's more acceptable with like a Gears of War.
Yeah.
But Diablo 4 seems a bit like, I don't know.
It's like too grim, dark, and serious for that. You know what I mean? Unless it was a very spicy chicken sandwich. Like if it was like the Carolina Reaper sandwich, like it was the heat of hell in your sandwich, then I would allow it. But as it stands, just a bland chicken sandwich as your gateway to hell, it doesn't really scan for me. But anyway, so I couldn't. Diablo 4 then had the open beta, but the servers were too taxed to get access most of the time. So I didn't actually end up playing it, but I watched a bunch of footage of it just to kind of like feel it out. Because Diablo 3 kind of meh. Diablo 2, one of my favorite games of all time. And so Diablo 4 seems like it's trying to sort of replicate what was great about Diablo 2. It's very like grim and dark. It's not like the hero story of Diablo 3. It seems more kind of like a grounded fantasy like horror kind of genre melding. But the thing that stood out to me the most for some reason is that do you guys remember in especially the 90s, but Diablo 2 in particular, when you would play a game and the game would sort of play out in its visual style, but then you would get to a cutscene and it would totally change the fidelity of the game.
Oh yeah.
Like it would go to a pre-rendered cutscene that looked like Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
Yeah, Dungeon Keeper did this a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or like the old Final Fantasy games did this a lot. A lot of games from that era, just as sort of like a technical limitation, because the whole game couldn't.
Final
look like
Fantasy.
that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So Parasite Eve does this as well, and the cutscenes are fucking fantastic. They're like that
really?
perfect level of like uncanny sort of like it's a horror game, so it's like extra creepy because everything's a little uncanny because of the animation of the time. But I was thinking about with Diablo. That fidelity gap, I feel like, is have you guys ever heard that Brian Eno quote where I'm gonna botch the quote, but it's something like the limitations of every age of media will come to be embraced as the aesthetic of that age.
Yes, 100%.
Once people can move past it.
And this is like Signalis, right? Like
Yes. Yeah.
right.
Totally. So I was thinking about one of those. So like this is often used in reference to people talking about like digitally produced music having like tape hiss on it, or people filming things on film even though digital is available. Basically embracing technical limitations as an aesthetic choice, even though there are ways to not have those limitations. And I was thinking, I feel like not a lot of people have leaned into that for this fidelity gap thing. And Parasite Eve was like such an interesting illustration of it, because it's a game that goes for this very realistic style, but then it has these bizarre abstractions. Not only like the cutscenes look different, but the overworld is like this little toy version of New York City that you're scanning around, and it's like there's something about the different levels of like, it doesn't try to make everything look cohesive, and for some reason that visual fidelity, that like separation of quality, makes everything feel like its own little special toy set or something. And for whatever reason, when I was watching Diablo 4, like the footage of it, even though the models are fantastic, which is why they can use them in the gameplay as well as in the cutscenes, it feels like less, like it felt, I don't know, it felt less special when it like goes to the cutscenes and it's just the character models from the game, but with different camera angles or something.
That's fascinating, because I feel like like I'm trying to rack my brain of like examples of this. Like Grand Theft Auto 1, when you completed a level, would give you like a very short CG cutscene, right? And that was a game where you weren't even looking people in the face. You were looking at them top down. So to see the world from this perspective, it was like, wow, like, oh, weird, like from the ground. And I remember even, like, it's funny, like sometimes it felt like, oh, that's really cool, because that's what games will look like in the future. And then sometimes it was like, it feels like it just reminded you of a technical limitation of the age and being like, oh, I hope in the future this is better. But I think you're right. I think now when it is a choice, like with Signalis, just the way that game looks, when you know it's intentional and not just a part of that problem, the Brian Eno problem of hitting that culture or hitting that technological barrier, it feels more authored, maybe. You're right, because like you know that this wasn't forced on them. Like this is kind of like a choice that they had made. What do you think make it at?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like, I think it's leaning into the fact that those things always felt special. Like StarCraft, I think, is another really good example. StarCraft is a game that has these tiny little sprites that are, I mean, they're expressive. Like the audio is really good, and like you get a sense of these characters. But then it goes to the cutscene, and it is like, I mean, it also. I keep saying Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, but that's kind of the feel of that like late '90s, early 2000s CG.
Soft, smooth skinned people.
Yeah, the NURBS that give the weird like curves to everything with like the Garand shading or whatever. I think Signalis is a great example, because they lean into that sort of like pixel art anime aesthetic more, that feels it feels of a whole with the rest of the game, but it feels different. But yeah, just like, so I've been thinking about that as I play old games, how it feels like a weird it's a reward or something for playing through those chapters. So even Parasite Eve, Parasite Eve is very kind of like the combat is interesting, but it's like turn-based RPG combat, and other than that, you're kind of just like walking around looking at stuff. But there's something about like the way it's told with these little sequences where you're like in the cop car with your partner, like talking through stuff, and it feels like very it almost reminded me of like Persona, like the way it was dedicated to its storytelling through these different like presentation styles and different kind of like levels of fidelity and stuff. The only other thing that it reminded me of is we talk a lot about this in documentary production, how getting different types of footage can make a thing feel more well produced, whether it's like getting on-site B-roll and then getting gameplay and then getting a drone shot and then getting the interview, and all these different kind of like different flavors make the thing feel more fleshed out. And I don't know, in a weird way, I feel like fidelity gap is one of those technical limitations that can be embraced as sort of like an aesthetic flavor or something.
Oh, it's also funny that like this came out in 1998, and that was the same year Half-Life came out, and Half-Life was kind of lauded for having no breaks, right? It was almost like breaks were the problem. Like it's funny you mentioned like cutscenes being this reward. Like I really feel like that was a big part of game design around that era, was putting effort into these cutscenes because they did feel like a reward. Like you got to the end of this and now you got to sit back and watch this thing. But then there was definitely like some sort of pull towards trying to create that cohesion, as you said, like make it so that there's no like even make it so that like UI felt like it made sense within that world and wasn't separate. Down to like having early adventure games with like the scum stuff at the bottom and then getting rid of that and having it so it was just in the world, or games like Fallout where the way they handled inventory and stuff like that felt like menu-y. You remember games were trying to strip away all the menu that was there because the menu felt like, I don't know, there was like a thought that like if you could get rid of all that it would make you feel more immersed or something. And then we just did the Last of Us documentary and they were talking about the cutscenes in that game. The problem in the PlayStation version was because they were rendered at a higher fidelity and they had different lighting, better lighting than the PlayStation could handle in real time. And then in the new version, they don't feel like cutscenes at all. And during that era, that's probably a good fix because I think people are happy that they go straight into, computer controlled cutscene, whatever you want to call it. As opposed to cutting to a video with this like black frame in the middle of it. So it's so like, it's a very results may vary kind of thing.
100%.
I think, and also down to like when you're looking at it. Are you looking forward in time or backwards in time or whatever? But I hear what you're saying. It is, nobody's played around with that.
Yeah. Signalis is a great example, though. I didn't even think of that last night when I was writing down notes about this because it leans into the formal aspects of editing, like of film editing. It does like this frame missing and stuff like that.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, and the first person stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't even think about that.
So that's what you're kind of like what you're saying with the variety thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's breaking you out of and I also think that helps with games that are kind of more slow and meditative, like survival horror games and RPGs and stuff. If you're doing a lot of walking around and just being curious about your environment, I think having those breaks from like the way that you're interacting with the world feels different in first person and the top down view. I feel like it breaks things up mentally and allows you to like it refreshes your curiosity about the world because it's not just like walk around, I press B on the thing, I walk around, I press B on the thing,
Yeah, some games really want you to think that you're playing a game, and Signalis is kind of one of those. And then other games really don't want you to think like The Last of Us or Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead, right? They're all trying to keep you feel like this is a real thing, not a game. And they're sort of, So yeah, it's funny. It's like a creative direction thing as well, maybe. But that's cool. I'm gonna be thinking about that for next. Trying to think about games that have messed with that, maybe. But nothing's coming to mind.
Yeah, if you play like
Parasite
old retro
Eve.
games, it'll come up. Yeah, happy 25th anniversary, Parasite Eve.
Sorry, I thought you were called Parasite Eve for years. I don't know why that was.
Is it the way it was
the
written
box.
on the logo? Like,
yeah, maybe. Maybe I'm just an idiot. It's hard to tell.
it does have a good logo. The Parasite Eve logo is like the words Parasite Eve written out in a font that looks like it's like 90s TV. It reminds me of like Alias or X-Files is how I would describe it.
It's got square brackets around it. According to this one, at least this box art I'm looking at.
There's like a couple different styles on
this
it.
Fucking lady with the long arms and the red dress.
Yeah, that's Eve, baby.
That's Eve.
Dude, it's the premise of Parasite Eve is so good.
Parasite Eve.
This all happens within the first opening cutscene, but it's
spoil this 25-year-old.
Yeah, if you're 25 years behind the curve, sorry. It's like how like the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, is like part of the cell that everyone learns about. The idea in this is that that mitochondria are because like humans are multicellular organisms where we evolved from organisms like banding together to create the cell. So it's like a bunch of little autonomous parts of the cell working together. And the idea of Parasite Eve is that the mitochondria this whole time has been not only sentient, but like more advanced than human beings. And so all of a sudden, all of our cells, mitochondria, start like firing up and doing shit. And so there's this whole monologue about how like the mitochondria has so much power that it could like melt a human at 1600 degrees if all your mitochondria fired at the same time.
But they are the human also.
Yeah.
So that's confusing.
Yeah, it's like this sort of like transhumanist idea that that our sense of self is like this illusory thing, and that we're essentially just like this colony
yeah.
of little individual little bits and pieces that allow us to exist. So
That's a very 90s thing. It's like Matrix is like that.
Yeah.
Existence. There's a lot of like, yeah.
I know. I
that
really
sort of-
like the tone of Parasite Eve for that reason, because it reminds me of like it doesn't this is what it is. It doesn't take itself seriously in the wrong way. It takes itself seriously in the sense that it treats its subject matter seriously, all the while doing like ridiculous, insane like X-Files kind of shit. But it doesn't ever go like wink and nudge like, oh, isn't this stupid? It's like, no, this is fucking cool actually. But all the while doing ridiculous things. I kind of like that about it, you know?
It's good stuff. Love it. It takes place on Christmas Eve as well, so
Yes.
that's pretty cool. Who doesn't love Christmas Eve? Well, everyone hates Christmas Eve because Christmas is better. Speaking of The Last of Us, though, there was some scuttlebutt. I just came home from internet hiatus, and there was a lot of people talking about The Last of Us PC version, which apparently came out super borked. Folks complaining on Steam. It's got like a bunch of negative reviews over there. But one of the things that caught my eye was that people were complaining about Iron Galaxy. Iron Galaxy is the Chicago-based game studio responsible for a bunch of stuff. It was a Rumble Versus is the game that they were working on for a while. A bunch of ex-Midway people, some of whom I'm good friends with. But they're also like a pretty powerful porting house, and they did a bunch of work with Naughty Dog over the years on stuff like the Last of Us, the Uncharted collection and a bunch of other things like that. But people were dogging on them a bit because of what happened with this PC port. But do you remember me asking about them in the interview, Jeremy?
Yeah.
So because I know some of the folks over at IG, and because I knew that they did do a lot of work with Naughty Dog, I was interested in how much of their involvement they had in it. And I think I asked off camera at the start because I was trying to prep my questions, and they said that they weren't. They basically, the guy we interviewed clarified that they were doing The Last of Us Part 1 in-house. It was the first time Naughty Dog was doing a porting job in-house. And I said I can't remember exactly what I said, but I said like, so Iron Galaxy aren't doing it, and the person said no. That's my recollection of it. I'm not sure if you remember anything else about that.
I seem to remember the same, yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. So he did bring it up later in the interview. So I have the quote. I don't have the quote from the time I asked during prep because we weren't filming, but I do have the part where this person, and I'm not sharing the video or audio and stuff because I feel like people will just use it in bad faith or something like that. But I just wanted to clarify because I did talk about this on Twitter. So the line I have here is that comes from the interview, and we didn't have this in the finished doc, was, so we're working right now on porting the game to PC, and this is our first time kind of in-house doing a PC port. Iron Galaxy really took point on Legacy of Thieves collection, but we're much more directly involved in porting The Last of Us Part 1 to PC. So people were saying that there are some Iron Galaxy logos on the various, promotional materials, and also some of the folks like Arnie over there was shouting out IG for their work on it. It sounds like this was mostly a Naughty Dog in-house thing, and that Iron Galaxy maybe were helping a little bit here and there. I imagine there's a lot of tech that was in the Legacy of Thieves collection that was probably used for this port work as well. I'm not sure. But we did ask some questions about the porting. You didn't have it in your cut, and I also didn't have it in my cut because it felt a little bit like 76. I was like, you know what? I don't want to. We asked some questions about like the porting job, and it's some interesting stuff. A lot of our interviews don't make it into the docs if they don't feel like they're connected to the wider thing. But it was a lot of them saying like porting is hard, but the stuff they were saying was like very much like stuff I've heard other people say about porting. Like, we're doing all of these tests to make sure it works on all the graphics cards, and we have all blah 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 and all this sort of stuff, and it's tricky. And on a PlayStation, we know when somebody buys the game that they're going to work on the PlayStation, but we don't know what type of machine people have and all this sort of stuff. So none of it actually made the cut. And I, for one, am fucking relieved none of it went in the cut because it would. But it sort of goes to show, I think, what we've learned over the years in terms of talking about projects and products once they're actually out in the wild and done. But also just how, like, misinformation. Like ultimately, like hopefully this thing gets patched soon. I'm sure people were working on it really hard, and the people who are the most disappointed, I'm sure the people who bought the game are disappointed you can't play it, but I'm sure the people who are even more disappointed in them are all the folks who were working on this port for years and years and years and now have all this shit going on. They probably aren't going to get much time off work for the next couple weeks until this thing is fixed. But it did remind me of like half the reason I feel like Noclip began was because people don't really care about developers or publishers a lot of the time or the work that goes on until the pitchforks are out. And I just found it interesting that there was so many people dunking on Iron Galaxy when, to my knowledge, they actually weren't responsible for this at all. Not that I'm saying they should be dunking on Naughty Dog or Sony or the people who are doing those. We're always mixed in this weird sort of soup of, corporations aren't people. You shouldn't protect corporations, but also there are people who work at those places who are actual people who have emotions and maybe shouldn't be targeted. But also you should be able to criticize art and criticize products you buy that don't work and all this sort of stuff. It just always makes me feel a little bit like it's such a nuanced, weird thing, and it always just makes me feel a little bit sad when something comes out and then people are screaming on the internet about it and screaming at the wrong person. So anyway, I just said it twigged my ear where I was like, I don't think that's accurate. So for what it's worth, that is the quote that we had from our doc. You can go check out our making of The Last of Us Part 1 over on youtube.com/noclip video. Frank, is there a couple of other games that you played that you want to mention?
Yeah, I guess I could do quick hits. One, my Steam Deck game as I traveled was Octopath Traveler 2.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Which is so good. I've been meaning
When did that come out? Is that new?
Came
or?
out February, yeah.
Okay.
And it was Jason Schreier wouldn't shut up about it. I love Jason, and he is like the JRPG master. Like he's always heralding like what are the greatest of all time, Suikoden 2, things like that. And he straight up said like Octopath Traveler 2 is like the best JRPG in the last decade, full stop. Like, and so I was like, holy crap! This for him to say that, I gotta check this out. And he also said you can skip Octopath Traveler 1, you can dive in blind. So Octopath Traveler 2 is part of this like recent wave of these like 2.5D JRPGs where the pixel art is gorgeous, but it kind of takes place in these like almost like 3D dioramas, and it's kind of like half a throwback to old school like SNES RPGs, but the mechanics and things are very accessible. So
it's like 3D lighting with like 2D
so
sprites kind of thing,
it's
right?
so pretty.
And depth
like
of field too, like the tilt shift effect on it makes it feel like toy-like or something.
Yeah, like
cool.
like combat, everything. It is so pleasing to play. And I've been playing it on Steam Deck. And the premise of Octopath Traveler is like you start your journey picking one of 8 protagonists, and every character has their own unique backstory, and you chain up and you link up with all your other 7 characters. You can swap out parties, and as opposed to having one grand JRPG narrative, it's like you're leveling up each character's like story at a time. So you spend equal time with all these characters, and it's just so charming, so sweet, so fun to play. The combat system is great. It's turn-based combat, and you have to like break down all the monsters like shield using their weaknesses, etc., etc. Very satisfying to play. I think I spent 20 hours into it already.
Wow.
I think I now I understand. Parasite Eve has been explained to me, the name, and now I understand why it's called Octopath Traveler.
Yeah.
Because there's 8 of them, and you're traveling around. Got it.
And
Okay, thank you.
It's genius. So yeah, highly recommend. I loved it. It was very good. Yeah, I got to play that on the plane. Got to play it in the hotel room. Got to play it in bed. Even here. So that's been like I haven't like got that hooked on a game on Steam Deck since I guess Vampire Survivors. Also a throwback pixel art game. The quality of the art is much different, but Octopath is great.
Different is a very nice way of saying it.
Yeah, and then the other weird thing to highlight, Jeremy inspired me to dive into weird hacked ROMs.
Yes.
So I got into before I left for PAX East. The thing I was kind of hooked on is I got into Fightcade, which is the online like fighting game emulator where you can play arcade games with people online. So I was doing a bunch of like multiplayer games with friends, Marvel vs. Capcom works, a bunch of other games. But the oddball was Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition.
Oh my god. Dude,
I had
what is
heard
this?
like rumors of this. I had heard of it.
Great name.
It exists. So Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition is a is a hack version of Street Fighter 2 that people actually like soldered and put into arcade cabinets out in the wild.
Oh wow.
And it completely breaks Street Fighter. It basically all the mechanics that like were later introduced in Street Fighter, such as like Alpha or Marvel vs. Capcom, people doing Hadoukens in midair, was introduced here. Like this is the OG for all of that. So every character can do their moves in the air. Even like charge characters, you can jump up and do a sonic boom in the air. As E-Honda, you can do 100 hand slap in the air. When you're E-Honda...
Wait, does he stay in the air when he's doing it?
Yes.
Wow.
It's so cheesy. They give all characters fireballs, so you can be...
Dude.
for no reason. So every time Balrog does like his dash punch, he also throws a fireball. Fireball's also home, so you can... they're homing fireballs. So it's like, it turns every Street Fighter into a DBZ fight. Do
you have higher health or something?
No, so it's like you get destroyed quickly. The other thing that's very funny, at any point during a match, you can press the start button to change characters. It just swaps. It's almost like you're Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat. So you can be like Blanca doing a bunch of stuff, and then press start, and all of a sudden you're Guile, and you can spam sonic booms.
Oh my god,
dude! I'm on like a boot. I'm on a bootleg games fandom wiki here, and it says here's a screenshot of a fight, and the caption underneath is Ryu versus Zangief. Note that Zangief has transformed into Saga.
Yeah. So like the character names don't update, so they'll say Sagat, but you can be playing as Blanca or whatever. You can also spam as many fireballs as you can fire out, so you can have 5 like fireballs going at once. Like it is so absurd, and it's now like this is the best version of Street Fighter 2.
That's awesome.
I feel like I need citation on this, but one of the trivia things in this article says this game is the reason Street Fighter 2 hyper fighting exists. A Capcom employee played this game, and while he was unimpressed with the game, he noticed that it was faster than the official Street Fighter games, and therefore hyper fighting was made.
Interesting.
That's
cool. Yeah, ROM hacking scenes come up with a lot of innovative shit. In fact, I went back and played standard Super Mario World after playing 2 Kaizo hacks, and it was like it was unplayable. Like it doesn't even feel like a game anymore.
Just so slow.
It's like I kept dying because I was just like, I don't understand why I have to like go so slow. Like I just want to run through this. Also finished Quickie World 1 and 2. So
wow, fair play.
If anyone wants to come at the champ, let me know if you're down to take the Quickie World challenge.
Oh my god, I'm watching footage of this fucking Rainbow Edition. Guile just did 2 sonic booms at another Guile who turned into Balrog during it, and the sonic booms were homing in on him while he jumped. So
oh my god, this looks incredible.
That's pretty great. Rainbow Edition. Thank you very much, Frank. What a menagerie of games we had this week. I didn't add anything to the list. I'm excited to play. What was very funny, apparently in my Q&A video, which I don't remember much about because I recorded it 2 weeks ago, I think I made reference to the fact that there's no chance there's a Counter-Strike 2 coming out, so I've got quite a bit of egg on my face with that one, maybe. Cool to see it. I'm interested in seeing what that was. The graphics look interesting. It looks kind of stripped back, but it's all Vulkan stuff, so I'm guessing the lighting and the fog and stuff is pretty cool. So I'm excited to play some of that. Is there any other games coming out recently? I mean, Hamster Playground I'm going to play a lot of, but is there anything else going on?
The big thing now is Resident Evil 4. So even at PAX East, everyone, like with Mega 64, everyone I talk to, it's like, I can't wait to be home so I can play Resident Evil 4.
Damn, I got to play that. You're right.
It's gorgeous. It's so cool. It surprises you. It feels good. It's I mean, every time Resident Evil does these remakes, they knock it out of the park. So it's excellent.
I think, is Dredge not out until tomorrow? Is that true?
I think that is true.
That is wild. Apparently our video on Noclip Crew did like a bunch of views in the past 2 weeks.
Nice.
Just I presumably because the game is now starting to get it's got like 50,000 views now. Presumably because the game is like now starting to get, I think it had a bunch of good reviews and stuff. Man, they gave us code for that super early. That's crazy. Dredge is great. Everyone go play Dredge. And then what else is coming? Just looking ahead into the April. Is there anything coming out in April? We've got Road 96, Mile Zero, as you said, which does look like it is a standalone extra game. So there you go. Minecraft Legends is coming out. That is the first time that is officially the first time that game is coming out, from Mojang and Blackbird, which I think in my head is up in Seattle. I can't remember. Maybe I'm wrong there. Anything else? Dead Island 2?
Yeah.
Star
Wars Jedi Survivor comes out, I think, April.
Oh my lord. I don't see it. Oh, you're right. 28th.
April
yeah,
28th, yeah.
Is that
So
is that a
later in the
sequel to
month.
the Soulsy Star Wars one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I haven't played that
Which
one.
was called. What was that called? Jedi Outcast? No.
Was it
That's-
Fallen
that's
Order?
Jedi Knight.
Was Fallen?
Fallen Order? Was that?
There's so many Star Wars things.
Man, too many game names. Redfall apparently coming out start of next month. Is that right?
Start of May.
so.
Yeah.
What were the previews like for that? There was a preview event and I couldn't make it because I was coming back from Dwarf Fortress. Was there much? Did you guys read anything about that? What people were saying about Redfall?
I did not. Frank, you see anything?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's pretty. If people are tepid on it. I don't know what the. I'll be honest. It's a bit of a shift coming from that studio, like kind of like a, because you can play it single player, but it is a very 4-player-y looking kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. World building and all that sort of stuff is so important when it comes to arcane stuff that maybe you just got to sit down and play it. I mean, also their games have always been hard to promo and trailer. Like,
Yeah, that's
like
what I
that
wonder.
has always been Arcane's problem.
I wonder how much the game is actually going to be sort of like a co-op Far Cry adjacent, shoot 'em up, blast 'em up, and get loot, and how much that's kind of like them trying to package this thing that's a little more nuanced and complex than that, and give it to people in a way that's like this isn't an unapproachable like space puzzle. This is like a game that you play with your
Right.
friends.
Yeah, that's a good. Time will tell, I guess. Because I guess I'm not mad into playing like co-op with a lot of people. It just logistically it never seems to work out. So that's why maybe I'm a bit tepid on it, but I'm excited to play it. What else is coming out? Oh, Darkest Dungeon 2 is getting out of early access
nice.
as well next month, so that'll be cool. Anything else? Amnesia: The Bunker. That System Shock remake did get pushed back just a little bit, so it looks like it's May 30th now. And then just for shits and giggles, let's look at June, especially because E3 now has a massive question mark over it. Looks like everyone's pulling out. Again, I think, did Sega pull out? I saw that Ubisoft obviously did. So somebody was saying the biggest publisher that they have now is Konami.
Oh no.
Which is, Konami are pretty. Everyone remembers that 2010 press conference. Absolute best press conference of all time. Diablo 4. What's that coming out for though? That's when it's out. Okay, yeah, June 6th.
Yeah.
It's coming out. And then I can't. Final Fantasy. Are we 16?
Yeah.
It's coming out. Crash Team Rumble is coming out. And I think that's it.
Yeah, I feel like there's nothing I'm super excited for until August, which is when Sea of Stars and Baldur's Gate 3 are both slated.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What's Sea of Stars?
Sea of Stars is a Chrono Trigger inspired sort of like throwback 16-bit RPG. I believe it's by the people who made God, what's it called? Fuck, I can't remember it. It's the Ninja Gaiden inspired hold on, I'm looking at Sabotage Studio. The Messenger.
Oh,
Did you ever play The Messenger?
Yeah. I remember
yeah.
it. I never played it, but I remember
really,
it. Yeah.
really good game. Kind of a platformy, like NES Ninja Gaiden style kind of beat 'em up. So it's super, super different genre-wise for them. But Sea of Stars looks absolutely unbelievable. Some of the best pixel art I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, the Messenger looked slick, I remember.
Yeah.
It's just a nice, stark look to
Messenger's fun.
it. And then just looking ahead a little bit more, it's still have Starfield.
Oh, yeah.
September 6th. And then, yeah, that's kind of it for the look of it. I feel like it feels a bit like last year. Whenever we talk, especially with Frank going to PAX, it's always the indie stuff has just gotten so good, and it's no longer these little tiny fun little diversions between big games. They're just the quality of them has gotten so good. It's bananas. So plenty to look forward to that you probably don't know about. Maybe, yeah, not much to look forward to, but probably a lot of great games coming that you don't know about.
The only thing we didn't mention that happened while you were gone, Danny, is do you remember Dark and Darker, the like fantasy BR kind of game we talked about during Steam Next Fest? It was.
I do remember. Yes, you remember you talked about it. Yeah, Dark and Darker. Yeah, it was kind of like a battle royale, but extraction shootery a little bit as well.
It was like a Morrowind Tarkov. So that game got pulled and the studio is in hot water because apparently a bunch of the devs who made Dark and Darker were former Nexon employees, and they were working on a project at Nexon that was like genre-wise identical. Apparently a lot of the art assets totally identical.
Oh, you're kidding.
They released side-by-sides of the concept art from Nexon and the concept art for Dark and Darker, and I mean, like, also, if anyone can hear it, it's hailing so hard at my house right now, so if you...
I can hear it, yeah. Is that what that is?
It is hailing insanely hard right now, so apologies if my mic sounds like it's static. It's actually the apocalypse. But yeah, so Nexon is going after them and got like the game taken down. But apparently they accuse a bunch of the Dark and Darker devs of having basically taken this idea that Nexon was working on and just making it on their own as a separate company.
Man,
so
that sucks for everyone.
See what happens.
It sucks for them. It sucks.
I said, so we'll see what happens, because it's like, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's all generic fantasy. So I will be curious to see, like, you can't patent a guy with a sword and a shield, but if he's wearing like a blue doublet with like a gray shield and he looks like a certain way, then it gets into hot water or whatever, you know.
Man, where are they based?
Korea.
Are they in Seoul or somewhere? Yeah, that's just assuming if they're Nexon, but
Yeah.
also, who knows these days with just, like, you know, everyone's everywhere at this stage.
Yeah.
Raided. Oh, they were raided.
Yes, yeah. The Korean
Oh my
authorities like
God.
came in and raided and, you know, took all the hard drives
Jeez,
with all the swords on it and whatever.
Don't fuck with Nexon.
Yeah, seriously.
Jeez, that's scary stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, that's a bummer. Yeah, I wonder what the story is.
Yeah.
There. Should we hop on a plane to Seoul, figure it out for ourselves? Dude, I had such a good time doing like the Dwarf Fortress doc and then doing the road trip. I was trying to come up with all these ideas because, like, more and more, because it always happens. I feel like we need to do studio visits because they're like, we get good stories out of them. People really appreciate it. It's like good preservation stuff. Even if it's big studios like Naughty Dog, right? It's like, in a way, it feels a little bit outside of what we do. It also was kind of what we always started doing, you know, doing those ones and Crystal Dynamics, of course, and it's really important. But I was trying to think of like weird ways we could like work in the future with some of this sort of stuff. And I had this weird idea where instead of like going and talking, because like a big part of the Noclip mission was always like trying to demystify the actual process of games development. And it just so happens that like games that already exist are a good method of doing that because people have an idea of the sort of end product, and you can kind of like, at least they know a lot. It's like watching a documentary about a sport. If you know the sport, there's less work to kind of get you to fill in the blanks. You can go a little bit deeper. But then I was thinking, like, what if we did like a thing where we're like a traveling band where we just turn up at like a game developer's. This would probably only mostly work for like single devs who can do everything themselves. So maybe you just go to a studio and do this as well. And we turn up and give them like a game jam challenge. Like, we tell them to like make this game. Like, here's a game, and maybe the patrons come up with a concept or something like that. And we turn up at like, who am I thinking of? Like I don't know. If I say it, if I put it into the world, it maybe it'll put pressure on people or whatever. We turn up at somebody and be like, and then film them for like 24 hours or 2 days or something, trying to build one of those games, and then turning that into a little production. Like, that could be kind of cool, and it could be scalable. Like, maybe then you go to Supergiant and force them to take 2 days out of their very busy schedule to go make something. I don't know. I was thinking just of like different ways of covering games that it's a little bit less preservation-y than a lot of our work is, but it might be a bit deeper on the process stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, the process stuff is really interesting when we're able to get little glimpses of it and stuff. It's one of those things that's hard to capture outside of like.
Right.
That's why the idea is interesting that you're saying, is because you're creating the context to capture everything, whereas normally it happens in sort of a staggered way where it's like there's a bunch of prototyping and going back and forth and seeing what works and stuff.
Yeah, like you probably were color grading footage of me filming the Choo Choo Charles developer pretending to work on the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, because we need that footage. All right. Speaking of projects, Vampire Survivors, I'm going to be filming the puppet this week. I'm very excited for that. Choo Choo Charles is being cut at the moment by Jeremy. Dwarf Fortress is being done by me. I will be honest, I think if we got Choo Choo Charles out next month, I think that's probably, we'll see. That would be great if we did that. Dwarf Fortress feels like a June or something. this feels big. It feels like there's a lot there. I was on the road trip writing scenes on the way. Like I think it's going to be really good, but I think I want to give it the TLC it kind of deserves. So we'll probably be there with that one. Age of Empires 2 DE is being worked on at the moment as well. I'm going to have to do an update with Jesse and see where we are with that. That could be next month as well. That would be really cool. And then Vampire Survivors as well. I'm going to try and get it in the next couple of weeks. So we've plenty going on at the moment. Stunt Derby was at GDC. Thanks to everyone who went over and played. Alex had it at the Mix, which is pretty cool. And he was also walking around with the Steam Deck with it, showing it to people. Got some interesting publisher conversations going on at the moment, which has been pretty fun. Got a couple more emails when I was on the road trip, so I have to follow up with some people. So we're hoping to get some funding for that soon, so we can continue the journey. The Stunt Derby now has barns in it. Like Alex had an idea of like just getting in modular buildings that we could break apart and going all in on a lot of the physicsy madness, adding in more of that stuff. He also added trees.
There's trees. Trees were added while you were gone. They're fucking cool.
Are they in? Have you played with trees?
I have footage to send you that I will send you today.
Holy
of
shit.
the game with trees.
When he sent me the first shot of trees, and like they're just like little shitty trees he made. No offense to Alex, he's not a 3D artist, although he's done all the art in this game already. We will be hiring somebody to take all that work from him at some stage. But he just put in his little trees, and it was like the effect that it had in terms of giving you some sort of feedback on how fast you were going.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's like, because you have shit going past you, and it was like, oh yeah, that's like, even the yaw of the car and the camera, you got more sense of it because you have all these like 3D objects that are shifting with the light.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that, but I definitely it felt different when I was playing it. I didn't put two and two together though. Yeah, it also gives such a sense of place. Like these sort of just empty green hills all of a sudden feel like you're in like a forest somewhere.
Exactly. What's the lore? We need to start putting weird shit in there. Alex had the idea of the fun thing about the trees is having a van just kind of fucking appear out of them like a bear running at you on a path.
Like a
or
state
something.
trooper.
Exactly, yeah. That's good shit. And that's all of our bits and bobs. If you'd like to support the podcast, fund our documentaries and get access to all of that extra goodness, head over to patreon.com/noclip. Thank you to Jeremy and Frank. Thank you to all of you for listening, of course. Thank you, Jesse Grasher, for producing this podcast every week as well. Jeremy, what are you doing for the rest of your week?
Oh man, probably editing more Choo Choo Charles, and I've been teaching myself to texture paint for all of March, and I have gone from zero texture painting ability to like pretty all right. Like I've really been hitting the bricks. Which is why I've been thinking about all this game fidelity stuff, is I've been trying to like find a niche for myself where it's like I can't paint photorealistic like God of War Kratos level like dimples in the skin, but maybe I can like abstract that a little bit PS1 style. So yeah, it's been cool.
Excellent. Love to hear it. Frank, how about you?
Yeah, I'm editing through all the PAX footage to see what turns up from that. A lot of like developer interviews in there. I picked up all my comics for the week and last week because I was out of town. And then the thing I'm most excited for is tomorrow night in LA, I'm going to DDT Japanese Wrestling. So this indie Japanese promotion is going to be in town for WrestleMania weekend. And so there's a blow-up doll wrestler named Yoshihiko, I believe, which is a straight-up like air doll that they have like the wrestlers work with, and like it's all real. I'm keeping kayfabe.
No.
Yeah, it is.
That's brilliant.
It is the wildest thing ever. So I can't wait. There's also Yoshihiko, and you can find matches on YouTube, and it's just straight up this giant air doll that they wrestle with, and it's like I can't wait to see that live. There's a bunch of other really cool wrestlers. There's one, yeah.
Oh my god, I'm looking at Yoshiko. It's just a sex doll.
Yeah, it rules. It rules. So DDT is very silly, very over the top. So I can't. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm back on fandom again, man. They have they have wikis
wiki
locked
for
up,
everything.
don't they? Fucking hell, they're gonna buy us next probably. Yoshihiko is an inflatable sex doll that, in quotes, wrestles for the Japanese wrestling promotion Dramatic Dream Team. That's what they went for DDT. Okay, I like it. Man, that's pretty cool. Yoshihiko is the kayfabe brother of fellow inflatable sex doll / wrestler Akihiro. So there's two of them.
Oh yeah, Akihiro is very good.
Have a good time, dude. Take some pictures. It's fun. All right, we're out of here. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.